people are talking about systemic racism, and I'm white, but I know it exists. And sometimes I feel like I have to apologize for everything the white men say and do. It's ridiculous. And we seem to think, well, I'm not to blame for what happened 200 years ago. Yeah, but you're to blame for what's happening now. And you can't tell me it doesn't exist because I've seen it. I'm a teacher, and my students living in Western Canada are all First Nations. And I tell them when they move to, if they're going to move to the city, they're going to face crap from a lot of people just from the fact that they're First Nations. I had a student who was having difficulty, and he's a bright, studious young man. Doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs. He's an incredible person. And he was struggling to get an apartment because people wouldn't rent to him. And he asked me what he could do. And I said, you know what? Don't wear jeans and a t-shirt, even if they look good. Wear a frickin' suit. Show up in a suit and tie. And that's the only way he got an apartment. It's ridiculous. But that's what happens. They've got to be 3 times as good to be considered half as good. Because they're not white. And I know what happens. I've seen it happen to my students. And it sickens me. I've seen people react, walking down the street. And they kind of tense up. Like, what are you doing? That's ridiculous. I was in a store with a friend and her daughter, and they're First Nation. They're Native. And I was watching. Now, she had a really good job, an amazing job. She was making triple what I was making. And the store clerk was following her around. And I was watching this. Looking, what are you doing? Why are you following her? And afterwards, we walked up to the till. And my friend went to pay for the things she was buying. And I looked at this guy and I went, listen, I could have robbed your store blind. I could have walked out of here with a hell of a lot of crap because you were so busy following her. Because what? She's Native? You think there isn't systemic racism in this country? There is. There's a lot of it. It's sickening. I had a friend whose young daughter asked me one time why a girl in her class, she's like grade 4, 5, and another little kid in the class asked, how come all natives are drunks and thieves? My mom says all natives are drunks and thieves. This is a 10-year-old listening to this kind of crap. And it's starting that young. And I didn't have a clue what to say to her. All I could tell her was, I'm white and I don't feel that way. I know you're not. And I know nobody in your family is. But it sickened me that I had to say it. That she had to ask it. That's where we're at, people. People are telling little kids not to trust Native people. That they're all drunks. I tell my students, if they go to the city, I said, don't drink. Don't drink. Because you know what? Everyone is going to think that's what you are. They're going to look at you and go, another drunk Indian. That's what they're going to think. Whether you are or not. You even go to the bar, even if you're of age, it doesn't matter. You're another drunk Indian. You might only have one. But that's what they see. It angers me. as a teacher that I have to talk to my students about this shit. And that's what it is. Shit. That's what it is. I shouldn't have to tell my students that people are going to look at them like they're lesser. But I do. I have to tell them that because it's the reality they face. They go to the city, they're walking down the street, and people are going to look at them sideways. Oh, what's he up to? And he could be dressed just the same as everybody else. Doesn't matter. He's seen as less because of the color of his skin. I shouldn't have to tell my students that. I shouldn't have to tell them that people are going to look at them like that. But they are. It's got to stop. My students are no better than anybody else, but they're sure the hell not any worse either. They're just kids. Let them grow up. So don't tell me Canada doesn't have a systemic racism. It does. In spades. As I have to stand there and tell my students that someone's going to look at them and call them another dirty Indian. It shouldn't happen. It should never happen. And don't tell me, and I have heard this said, well, don't blame me for what happened 200 years ago. I'm not. I'm blaming you for what's happening now. You see some Native kids walking down the street. Why the hell is that any different than a bunch of white kids walking down the street? That's the difference. And if you can't see that, then you're not paying attention.